people's wondering, what is the blues? I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is. When you ain't got no money, you got the blues.
You know those blues tracks that just hit different? The ones that make you feel like you're living every heartbreak and victory all at once? If you felt that, then you've probably heard of Howlin' Wolf. This Mississippi legend had a voice so powerful it could shake the heavens. He didn't just play the blues, he became it. From clashing with the army to owning the stage, his life was as raw and intense as the music he made. Get ready to dive into the story of a blues icon whose impact still echoes today.
Well, when we first started playing together, we started playing because we wanted to play rhythm and blues, and Howlin' Wolf was one of our greatest idols, and it's a great pleasure to find he's been booked on this show tonight. It really is a pleasure.
Thanks to Howlin.
Well, I was broke when I was born. That's the reason I'm howling.
Howlin' Wolf. Yep, that's the name he went by, but he was born Chester Arthur Burnett, was a total blues legend from Mississippi. Picture this, a guy towering at 6'3" and almost 300 pounds, basically built like a tank, strutting onto a stage.
Kind of like meeting an elephant. He was just so big and overwhelming. And then the other thing is that you realize you just met like one of the most gentle and knowledgeable elephants that you're likely to meet.
He had this voice, deep, gritty, and raw, that just grabbed you and didn't let go. And when he performed, let's just say nobody could take their eyes off him. He brought a whole new energy to blues that's still unforgettable today.
A lot of people's wondering, what is the blues? I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is. When you ain't got no money, you got the blues.
Wolf's life took a serious turn when he crossed paths with Delta blues icon Charlie Patton as a teenager. While he didn't completely nail Patton's guitar skills, he soaked up enough of his rhythm tricks and stage moves to set himself up for greatness. That mentorship, total game changer for his blues career. Another big player in Wolf's music story, Sonny Boy Williamson, his brother-in-law, and a blues legend in his own right. Sonny Boy hooked him up with some harmonica lessons, and that was a total game changer. Adding the harmonica to his skills took Wolf's sound to the next level and made his blues legacy even stronger. After a stint in the Army, Wolf went back to farming, but decided it was time to really go all in on his music. He started performing around West Memphis, Arkansas, sharpening his sound and building a loyal crowd. His intense shows and one-of-a-kind style didn't go unnoticed. Producers came calling, and before long, he was hitting the studio for his first recordings. Wolf's career hit a new level when he headed to Chicago and linked up with Chess Records. That's where he cranked out some of his biggest hits like Smokestack Lightning, Killing Floor, and Little Red Rooster.
I am a little red rooster.
His sound became the blueprint for Chicago blues and left its mark on musicians from every corner of the music world.
Well, when we first started playing together, we started playing because we wanted to play rhythm and blues, and Howlin' Wolf was one of our greatest idols, and it's a great pleasure to find he's been booked on this show tonight. It really is a pleasure.
Thanks to Howlin.
Okay, we'll come back to the legendary career he had, but beyond music, like most artists, because they are human beings too, they have parts of their lives that are just as intriguing as their art. Let's talk about his Army days. When the US joined the war, millions of men were shipped off to fight, but Wolf wasn't lining up to volunteer. Word is government agents had to track him down and drag him into service. Wolf later said plantation owners ratted him out because he refused to work their fields. Once the Army got him, they shipped him off for training in Arkansas and Florida. For Wolf, the Army was a nightmare. He'd never been to school, couldn't read or write, and suddenly found himself stuck in a classroom for the first time. At 30, he was reassigned from kitchen duty to learning how to decode military messages, something that required him to read. They sent him to Washington for tutoring, but it was brutal. His instructor, a total tyrant who hit him with a riding crop whenever he messed up. Eventually, Wolf hit his limit. One day, he broke down, shaking uncontrollably. By 1943, the Army sent him to a mental hospital for evaluation. Years later, he summed it up perfectly. The Army is hell. For 2 months, Wolf was stuck in a military mental hospital, and let's just say they didn't care that he was already a rising star in Delta blues. Instead of treating him with respect, they tied him to a bed, ran all kinds of tests, and forced electroshock therapy on him. When he pushed back, things got physical, literally. But even in that nightmare, Wolf found a way to cope. He'd sing the blues right there in the ward, tapping his feet on the cold floor to keep time and giving the other patients a little bit of comfort.
How many more years till I...
When he wasn't locked down, he played checkers with patients and staff. Surprisingly, Wolf said it was one of the first times he felt like he was on equal footing with white men. Doctors threw out wild guesses about what was wrong with him. One even suggested syphilis-induced schizophrenia. Spoiler, he didn't have it. Eventually, they labeled him mentally unfit and sent him home. Being a black man in the military at that time didn't help. He was written off as hysterical, a label slapped on way too many black soldiers. Looking back on it, Wolf had a blunt take. The Army ain't no place for a black man, just couldn't take all that bossing around. The Wolf's his own boss. And again, just the next guy who's just going through the motions of the experience. The Army wasn't the only down on his luck period of his life. By the late 60s, Wolf's health was starting to take a hit. His first heart attack happened while he and guitarist Hubert Sumlin were on the way to a show at the University of Chicago. Wolf collapsed against the dashboard, and Sumlin pulled over, grabbed a random 2x4 off the road, and smacked it into Wolf's back, jump-starting his heart in the process. A few weeks later, while in Toronto for a gig, Wolf had more heart and kidney issues. Doctors wanted him to have surgery, but he flat out refused. He told his wife he couldn't stop working, showing just how much his music meant to him, even when his health was on the line. In 1970, Wolf survived a brutal car accident that sent him flying through the windshield and wrecked his kidneys. From then on, dialysis became a part of his life, with his wife Lily stepping up to handle the treatments every 3 days. Later that year, while recording the London Howlin Wolf sessions in the UK, his health took another hit. By the next year, things had gotten worse. Another heart attack, kidney failure, and even high blood pressure joined the list of struggles. Still, Wolf wasn't about to give up the stage. By 1973, he was back in action, but his bandleader, Eddie Shaw, had to step in, keeping him to just 6 songs per show to protect what was left of his health. Even then, Wolf proved he couldn't be stopped.
Well, I come out the window.
By early 1976, Wolf's health hit a breaking point. He checked into a hospital in Illinois for kidney surgery, but things took a darker turn when doctors discovered a brain tumor just days before he passed. On January 10, 1976, at 65, Wolf's fight came to an end with heart failure, kidney disease, and the tumor all playing a part. He was laid to rest at Oak Ridge Cemetery, just outside Chicago. His gravestone tells his story in its own way, with a guitar and harmonica etched into the stone, forever marking him as the blues legend he was. Speaking of being a blues legend. So, yeah, he may not have mastered Patton's crazy guitar skills, but he definitely picked up the key stuff that would shape his music. Then, there's Sonny Boy Williamson, aka Alec Rice Miller, who married Wolf's half-sis. He taught Wolf how to play harmonica, adding a whole new layer to his sound. This move really set him apart and gave his music that extra punch. After doing his time in the Army during World War II, Wolf went back to farming, but music was calling. He started performing and quickly gained a following. His commanding stage presence and insane voice got the attention of producers, and that's when his recording career took off in the early 50s. In 1951, Wolf hit the studio for the first time at Sun Studios in Memphis with the legendary Sam Phillips behind the wheel. That's where tracks like Moanin' at Midnight and How Many More Years were born, showing off his signature gravelly voice and one-of-a-kind style. These hits got him noticed and led to a deal with Chess Records in Chicago, where he'd stay for the rest of his career. When Wolf moved to Chicago, it was game on. At Chess, he recorded some of his biggest songs. These tracks didn't just make waves, they became classics, influencing tons of musicians across all kinds of genres. Wolf's music had that raw power, emotional punch, and a unique mix of electric guitar and harmonica that set him apart. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Howlin' Wolf's influence just kept growing. He was everywhere, touring all over the US and internationally, bringing that unforgettable energy to crowds all over the world. He met his future wife, Lily Handley, at one of his shows in Chicago. Lily came from a more polished, educated background, so the whole blues scene wasn't exactly her world. But the moment he spotted her in the crowd, he was hooked. He made his move, and they ended up madly in love until the end. They raised Lily's 2 daughters, Betty and Barbara, from a previous relationship. Oh, and fun fact, West Coast rapper Scheme is his great-nephew, born 14 years after he passed away. Once he married Lily, who handled his money like a pro, he started making some serious cash. He wasn't just stacking bills for himself, he made sure his bandmates were taken care of too, offering them solid pay and even health benefits. He was all about having the best musicians around, but when it came to spending, he wasn't about flexing. His stepdaughters remember him as pretty low-key, rolling around in a Pontiac station wagon instead of something flashy. Howlin' Wolf wasn't just a blues legend, he was the voice of a whole generation. This guy had a presence that you could feel in your bones, and his music still carries that raw, untamed power. From his roots in Mississippi to making waves in Chicago, his influence is in every guitar riff and harmonica blast that tries to match his style. So, next time you hear that deep, gritty voice, just know, Wolf's still out there howling, never truly gone.